Chip. Okay. Calling to order the Tuesday, May 14, 2019, City of Berkley Budget Work Session. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Here.
Councilmember Dean.
Here.
Councilmember Gavin.
Here.
Councilmember Hennan.
Here.
Councilmember Stedman.
Here.
And Mayor Treasury.
Here. First order of business is the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support. Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Baker with support from Councilmember Gavin. Any additions, changes, corrections? Seeing none, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on tonight's agenda?
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennan.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
And Treasury.
This time, we'll stand for the pledge. The flag is displayed proudly behind us right there. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've now reached the citizens' comments portion of our agenda. Again, same rules apply. You can speak on agenda items while they're being considered. Come to the, or when you stand up, there's no microphone there. Please state your name and city of residence.
Anyone in the back?
All right, seeing no citizens standing up, we will move on to tonight's order of business. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 1?
Budget work session, matter for discussion of proposed 2019-2020 City of Berkley budget for City Clerk, Finance and Treasury, Building and Planning, Public Works, Parks and Recreation, and Finance debt funds.
All right. We will begin with item A, which is the city clerk.
I'll be short and
Sure.
sweet. There were no changes except for the
31.
contractual.
Page 31.
Oh, I'm sorry, page 31. Everything remains the same for our budget. If you go down to the only change that we requested was page 31 for, or, I'm sorry, not page 31, page 33. If you look at contractual services, we are requesting for another increase for our election workers. And that is all the changes for our budget. Any questions?
Questions for our clerk?
Sure, I see we're still preparing, as if there were 3 elections coming up. Do we have any insight if we'll actually have all 3? Is this just precautionary to ensure we have it covered? Yeah.
Yes.
Nice, thank you.
Additional questions or comments? Councilor again.
Thank you. So is there any other assistance that's needed with the election law changes that have been
We have not,
before for implementation?
with the municipalities with the May election, they have not advised us of any extra for assistance of any sort. I believe the only concern was the early voting or registration on election day, but that they normally come to the city hall, to the city clerk to register versus to the precincts.
Okay, yes, yeah, if there's any assistance that's needed as a result of some of these law changes, prove to bring it back in front of council. Thank you.
Any other questions for our clerk? Clerk in Elections Department. Seeing none. Thank you, Annette. Aside from what Councilman Gavin just asked, is there anything else in the clerk's office that would be beneficial?
Not at this time.
Okay. Last time I asked. Moving on? No. Yeah, we joke, and I've asked, I think, every department head over the last couple of years what else, and I mentioned it yesterday. If we don't know that there are things that we don't know we need to budget for down the road, it's very difficult to be able to have those conversations. So if there are things, whether it's in this budget or future budgets, just at least giving us an idea of what may be coming down that might help us prepare for those things. All right, we will move on to finance treasury, and we are currently ahead of schedule. Wow, we got Darren and Sean coming. Building up time for them. Mr. Finance Director, I assume this is your department?
Sure, I will tackle this one.
36, page 36?
36 is the first page, yes.
All right.
Well, you kind of see how, starting at the top, the full-time employees. I think that reflects your changeover in this department on a regular basis. I hope to put an end to that as long as things work out well. Stick around a while and
Shackles and chains.
And then as you go down, I just double checked, the 55,000 that we have projected for retirement is for this year. I know there was an anticipation in last year's budget to move MERS into its own category. We did complete that this year. Payroll automatically posts into MERS and a DB. So Sue and I talked about it, and we just left it for the year, and we amended the budget to reflect that. But next year we'll move it into that 952. Not a whole lot of changes other than that. I know I left the Oakland County Assessors the same for the 2 years upcoming, although they budgeted increase or asked for an increase which council approved, but it seems like they add and subtract annually. A few parcels, residential, a few personal property parcels, so the amount does end up fairly close even though there's an increase. So obviously we'll take a look at that, but if there is an increase, it will be a really small amount. And everything else is professional development, we're leaving the same. Stan and I just spoke today about some BSNA classes that council was talking yesterday. We feel there's an opportunity to utilize BSNA better. We think there's a lot of things that the program can do that we haven't utilized yet, so we do plan on taking advantage of that this year.
Is that it? Questions for our finance director on the finance treasury portion of the budget?
Actually, that's just finance, treasury next.
Yeah. 39.
Okay, well, let's keep rolling through, that's all let's take.
39, again, not a whole lot of change. 39 is really Brian Bemis, the deputy treasurer. And once again, we move things to a single department for active benefits, but his budget's pretty much the same other than that. I think we took care of, he requested a couple of chairs during the year, and Matt and I spoke about it, we went ahead and amended the budget for the current year, so took care of that. We didn't have any other specific needs.
So questions now in general for finance and treasury. I'm not seeing any. Aside from the professional development that you mentioned and utilizing BSNA maybe a little more fully than we currently are, is there anything else that will help finance / treasury run any more optimally than it is right now?
Yeah, in the short time I've been here, the support council gives finance is much appreciated, there's no doubt about it. Again, I hope it brings stability to the department. So far, I've worked very well with everybody so far, and again, I commend how this city operates. I really do think it's a model for surrounding communities. The way you conduct your business, I think it's ideal. So I'm proud to be part of it. So, and hopefully, like I said, it'll continue. But nothing really there. Lori and Sue, they're easy to
thank you for, obviously, your presentation here, but again, for everything that you guys do to get this process from start to finish, to get it to where we are today, to have these discussions. And Sue and Lori have been through a number of these, but with changes, it seems like it's been a little bit of a moving target, so again, that stability is something we all are certainly looking for, not just the finance, but obviously stability citywide, to help us make it run as efficiently as possible.
And I did pass on to Sue when you had said it, last night, and she was very appreciative. She thought that was very nice, so.
It's very true, so I'm glad, and we certainly all appreciate it, I'm sure I speak for all of my peers as well.
Yes.
Any other questions on finance or treasury? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to building and planning. Yeah, make sure that the table is locked.
Oh, yeah.
Push down on that.
Yep, locked. It wasn't locked, I was thinking.
Good day for Shane and I, the video there.
Where are we gonna start, Tim?
Start on page 62, building. Here. Our major increases in spending for the building department comes for the inspection services that are covered by McKenna. Per contract, 75% of the permit revenue is paid to McKenna, which is a little bit different structure than the previous building official in the trade. So that's gone up. For our full-time personnel, Kim and Dana, I recommended that their pay be increased by 4%. I believe for all the employees, the city manager recommended 2%. However, I feel that we've asked a lot of Kim and Dana as we transition to a good team with McKenna. So it's been, a healthy time in the department. They've continued to work very hard. Their performance, in my opinion, has been very admirable. They've done everything I've asked of them without missing a beat. They've been fantastic. Other than that, no major increases on building. Does anybody have any questions before moving on to planning?
Questions on page 62 and 63.
Are the jumps in costs that we're seeing related to McKenna in line with what we're expecting?
Yes, I mean, you're talking in terms of revenues or?
The increased costs, if it, it's a, yeah, but, I wanted to make sure just that, we're on track for what we were expecting, with this contract.
Yes.
I actually think this is likely to come in a little bit lower. This is, the numbers taken here is just a straight 75% of revenue calculation. But there's a lot that dumps into that revenue account that is not actually subject to McKenna getting 75% of the contract. And so Jim in our office and then works with Lori, especially in the initial terms. I think each month you guys sit down, right, at this point still, and still go over the billing to make sure that's consistent with permit revenue, that you're billing is on permit revenue, as opposed to some of the other revenues that come through there as well. Come November of this year, we'll have a first full year under our belt, and I think we'll be able to be a little bit more accurate in our budgetary numbers, but this is at least a conservative. This is, we don't expect it to go over this, and based on the permit revenue, it could actually come down a little bit, so we'll gain more clarification as we move forward, but I don't think it's going to exceed this.
Councilor Blanchard?
Yeah, one time we talked about the new inspectors having tablets and being able to do stuff in the field more efficiently, generate stuff, but I don't see anything in here about that. Is that happening, or what's the story?
Yeah, the software, the hardware is going to be purchased by McKenna. The software is going to be purchased by us.
Is it not, it's not in the building department?
No, it's in the IT. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the initial cost will be covered by my budget, and the maintenance fees that we pay that are spread out through the individual budgets, that will probably hit the building department next year.
Yeah, I wanted it because they basically do a change in the
Mhm.
software line at Berkley, so as long as that are yours, we don't.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, with regard to what you had talked about, the billing, you need monthly, what's the process to extract those charges? Do you have to go line by line to see what they're billing for? Do you have a,
We run, Kim runs a report out of
Okay.
PSNA that shows all the permanent revenue.
okay,
And he's been really instrumental in saving a lot of money because they apparently get, they say from all their other clients, they get full revenues on everything. And Kim said, no, these registration fees for contractors, that is not part of it. They sat down and they had a discussion. And she's literally, I mean, there have been a couple bills where there was $10,000 in different registration fees. So she talked with them and we said, okay. And then we, some things come through, we credit back permits and they've already taken the revenue, so we have to make sure that we're deducting that. So she goes through it and then anything I find, I go back and we look at the credits and make sure. So it's not awful. They say, here's the permits we've done and she compares it to what is in the revenue.
but you have to be mindful.
Yes,
So-
every month we go over it.
Thank you, and I appreciate that extra time that takes because
Yeah.
it's important.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Kim and Lori have been very diligent, and I'm very, very appreciative of their efforts on reviewing those invoices.
What is the difference in house inspection rentals? Why are we anticipating such a big increase?
Well, we've kind of had a jump in the first part of the year. And there seems to be a higher demand this year than in other years for the rental inspections.
Higher demand meaning more rentals in the city?
Not more, I think we've got it's like an every other year inspection, so this is a year where we
It's
have
the
more,
other year now.
yeah, more than in previous years.
So we're anticipating that staying the same the following year as well?
At this point, we don't know. Again, as the city manager indicated, this could be, should come in lower than this.
Yeah, I'd like to, if I may, I was gonna add, I'd like to get a little bit more insight. I'm not questioning it on the surface, just curious, right? Because it's almost a 3X jump from the prior years, and it looks steady for both the upcoming cycle and the cycle after that. So if there's any additional insight that you might be able to offer up, just to help us better understand the projections involved here. Is it twice the inspection that it used to be?
Well,
Is it, that kind of stuff?
Part of it too is just the cost that we pay to account for those inspections.
For the rentals, so we're just anticipating increased cost because it's contracted differently now? McKenna first. McKenna, do you remember anticipating higher costs on those?
Yes, because we're getting 75% of the revenues, whereas the previous building official was paying a flat rate per inspection.
Is that the same scenario for the business license inspections? The reason why that's
Yes.
more than doubling? So those are numbers that we're not entirely sure what they're gonna be. That's accurate.
Correct. The what we spend is going to be driven
So those are
by-
placeholders
by
until we
demand.
figure out what the actual numbers are going to be. All right, that makes more sense. Any other questions on 62 or 63? All right, continue please.
For planning department, no major increases. I'm sorry, 86. We've asked for a line item for a group membership in the Michigan Association of Planning. Hope to take advantage of some of the trainings and opportunities that they they have throughout the year. We've got the master plan listed in the budget under contractual services, which we covered over 2 years. And of course, we just opened bids on the master plan, so had a chance to read through the proposals and all pretty exciting stuff. They're all, proposals all pretty good. We're again asking for $2,000 in professional development. The current fiscal year, both the Planning Commission and ZBA is taking advantage of training opportunities. We currently have three of our planning commissioners are taking the MSU Citizen Planning course. And we had some take advantage of that in the last year as well. We had Carlisle Workman out to City Hall to do a planning and zoning basics, which was very well attended. So, since they're taking advantage of these opportunities, I think it's important that we continue to keep both the Planning Commission and CBA well trained.
Is 2,000 enough?
That was my question, yeah.
Well, we're coming close to that this year. I think that's a fair number. Most of our planning commissioners will have taken the MSU Citizen Planner course. That's where a good portion of the training funds have been spent in the current fiscal year.
So it's a fair number, and I appreciate that. Fair is okay, but if we have the capacity to increase that to allow for additional training, planning and zoning, I don't think, and it's a very difficult job that those volunteers have to do, or volunteer to do, not have to do, but have volunteered to do, and if there is some additional way that we can support them, I will certainly be willing to have that conversation with my colleagues.
Yeah, and not only the initial training of the citizen planning program, but also the interest of making sure that all of them are looking for continuing education.
Particularly, we don't see as many trainings for CBA come up, which is unfortunate because that's a very valuable supported board, and I think there's more potential for legal liability, for CBA decisions. So I think keeping them, as up to date and trained as we can is important. So I think if there's the possibility for additional funds for professional development, I think certainly we would take advantage of it.
Well, I think if we offered more, there was more capacity there, and we made sure that all the folks on those respective boards knew that there were opportunities, and we made sure that it was a priority for everybody to have as much education on those as possible. In the worst case scenario, if it's not all used, then it moves forward to next year. I would not have an issue moving that and doubling that.
That would be fantastic and very appreciated.
Colin?
I think that's great.
Just a question, your comment about the CBA training. Is there anything through the Michigan Association of Planning or the local county building officials group that we could utilize? I mean, maybe we get a consortium together and set up training for 3 or 4 local cities. Get somebody in from Lansing or from the planning department or from one of the other cities. I think we got to think outside the boxes. We need training. We know we need training. We got a risk of liability here, and we got to reach out and find a way to get it because it doesn't exist readily. But we got there's people out there that know it. The training that we had here with the Carlisle Workman, that was good. We need to have that every year, and maybe keep getting more involved in it every year. So just something to think about. There are other cities that need it. There are cities that may have connections, and then Michigan Association of Planning or some other consortiums, I think, may be able to help us out.
So, and the Michigan Association of Planning does offer trainings, not regularly, but kind of quarterly. They'll have different sessions available. Carlisle Workman put together was a training through the county of a community I previously worked for that was well attended by most of the jurisdictions it was on. Planning and zoning was pretty similar to the one we did, and very valuable. Again, I always got a lot out of any trainings offered by the Carlisle team. I think there'd be some opportunities for Oak Park and Huntington Woods to kind of collaborate on getting a training session. I believe it was Vice Chair Smith of the Planning Commission had stated that a few years ago that we had participated with some of those communities on a joint training. I think he said it was on a Saturday. So yeah, I think that definitely that opportunity is there.
It seems to me that planning and training is something that is obviously important to this council to be able to support again those volunteers as best as we possibly can. Not only increasing that line item as we mentioned, but also looking at other ways that we can bring creative educational opportunities for those folks. Is that fair?
Totally, yes.
So we're done with that?
Yes. Anything else on 86, 87? No, we'll move on. Where are we going next? 88?
That's no more, because Pete has been moved across the street.
That's true.
And he's the only code enforcement that we have left on payroll, so all his expenses are across the street. Or here. You're here. This side of the street.
Anything else?
Not unless anybody has questions for me.
Any questions for Tim before we move on?
Just never be afraid to ask.
Anything else?
For training,
What else?
especially for
With aid in the department. Okay.
An office with a door, maybe. Not a tall order. Sometimes it'd be nice to have, a quiet place to work, occasionally. I get easily distracted.
Well, you don't get lost in that office, though.
It's true.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim.
Once again, thank you very much.
And we will move
Here we
from
go.
building and planning to our main event of the evening.
Main event.
Person rec.
Yeah, let's not
I mean-
like Teresa.
Oh, okay then.
How many different funds do you have to go through?
I don't know what Teresa did to this punishment.
It's 2 years in a row, something. I hope so.
She wanted to see, she requested to watch your presentation. Yeah, I don't think she did. All right, we have with us Derek and Sean here. As we move through this, as you guys know, that this is our very intensive part of the budget. A lot of different funds that we're going to go through here and go through. Derek, are you going to be driving this or Sean? Which one wants it? Okay.
There was no hesitation there.
So, yes, Derek, as we move through each of the pages, just to try to make sure that we're not missing anything and we're also being as efficient with our time.
Sure.
Highlight, big changes on the pages, and then before we move on, we'll kind of do a quick double check and see if there's any other questions before we move on to the next one. There?
All right.
Where should we start?
I'm on 63.
64.
Or 64, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So we'll start off with 101 and go through. So this is, I think the first one I'll start with is overtime, and you see the events that are listed here, and this list has grown quite a bit since I started here. Seems to be growing all the time, so this is one that I think we need to continue to keep an eye on and monitor. We've had some events that, proposed events that we just didn't feel comfortable staffing from our perspective because of commitments made the previous weekend, if you will. And so this is something that we need to kind of continue to monitor, that we don't get into a situation where we're doing so many auxiliary events that we can't mind our own mess with what we need to take care of. So, but this is where we logged that time. Moving down, some changes on 64.
I'm gonna stop for a minute. I don't know who we talked about, but you'll see in the payroll at the top, full-time employees has gone down. Labor is no more. So, we're not allocating them the way they used to be done to all the different.
Different part, all different departments.
Right, so we kind of put like, you know, where needed, one person in 441, or, you know, where they're really working to even out the payroll based on what fund, what department they're in. So you're gonna see changes there, they're all in there, they're just in different places now, so it's not so crazy to do the payroll and the benefits.
Instead of allocating 5% here,
Yes.
10% to this and 20% here.
Right, Mark decided how much was going and then, you know, accordingly put 1 or 2 employees in water and sewer.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think this is more a conversation for us. And I observed this with public safety as well, the overtime that they have for events. And especially if an event is of a commercial nature, if we should be capturing bigger fees to help offset our overtime, that, you know, what it actually costs us to support those events. I don't expect we would capture 100%. I don't want to make it cost prohibitive for these events to occur. I love that we have them, but I also want to be mindful that we don't just say yes to everything and really put a strain on our staff trying to support it. So I don't know what the solution.
What are your thoughts on that? But I know we've had some events recently that we have been asked to do, and we've had to say no because we've had too many other things that are going on at that same time. From a pragmatic standpoint, of just trying to get everything in place, but not only thinking about spreading you guys too thin to do the things that you mentioned, take care of your own house and the additional things.
I think it's tough because we have events that are, you know, for-profit event, it gets into a whole other world, I guess.
Right.
But, you know, community events,
Right.
community events, and those
Which
are
are
important.
Exactly.
Now, I get it, it's difficult sometimes to find that line. I'm certainly not one that's reviewing the financials of these things and can tell you who's making money and who's not, and but.
Well, I think it's something that we need to be mindful of on our end. It's not obviously a decision that you guys should have to make. It's more of a capacity, and if it was a for-profit event, then maybe we could look at the fee structure to take into consideration the additional stresses.
I think having the events go to council is important, you know, that way everybody's in the loop on things. New events, it's important that they plan at least a year ahead of time. And
Right.
sometimes 18 months, that's been a big issue, is people coming in and then their timing problem becomes our timing problem, which isn't right.
It's not.
So can we put that as part of our process moving forward with events? And we have the flexibility, if it is a for-profit event or event, but not one of our community events, to charge higher fees. We have that.
I will find out, if not, I'll bring an ordinance forward that would kickstart that conversation. Continue that conversation.
Good.
And I just want to echo, I believe I raised that issue like when I first came on council, and one of the first things that I was looking at, because from a business perspective, I'm looking at the dollars and I'm looking at the cost to the community and the benefit versus the benefit. And I think you make a really important distinction. If it's a community event and we're all benefiting, and you know, that's a great thing. And these are our tax dollars at work for the community. But if it is a for-profit, we need to take another look at that. And I appreciate and encourage that conversation moving forward, because it's one thing to, you know, if I'm gonna have a dinner party in my home and invite my friends, as opposed to, you know, opening something up and I think, maybe I'm gonna make a little bit on this, you know, dinner. That's a whole different thing. And I think we need to be mindful of it. We need to be proactive about it. And it isn't just the money piece, but it is your resources as well, people, hours, and all of that. And you don't want to overtax the department, you know, physically as well. So thank you.
Another comment.
Yep.
Using the Art Bash as an example, it's a commercial event for the artists to come, but it brings 10,000 people into the city that eat in our restaurants and
Right.
see the other businesses. So defining a commercial event versus a community event may be very difficult.
Yeah, I don't know that the art bash was what we were necessarily.
That's the
It's a
first
good-
example that
yeah.
came to
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
So, you know, if the Made in the Mint event was another one that came, which was much more on the commercial side, so. But we have to be careful how we define those, that's
Yes.
a little work in on that.
That's for sure.
Well, I think that's why having our ability as council to look at all these different events and have a conversation about it. All right, onward.
Onward. Moving down the list here, 65. I don't know that we've had anything too noteworthy there. Again, chime in if you have anything to raise.
Any questions on 65? Seeing none?
66, again, I use 3-year averages for utilities at Public Works. I think we've got those pretty well honed in over the years. Anything else on 66?
We talked about physicals yesterday, that was for public safety. Okay.
But yeah, we had the firefighter physicals included in that, which is a new requirement.
Right. Okay, these physicals are listed, are they required?
They are. So these are related to CDL licenses.
This is just probably a typo, but 5 physicals, $200, should be 1,000 instead.
So 50/50
Oh, it's
split.
a- yeah.
That was the bottom line down.
Oh,
See,
oh, the bottom
over
line.
here.
Oh, right there.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Said no.
All right, thank you.
Those can get confusing, believe me,
Yes.
as well.
It's not physicals, are they annual?
We are every 2 years, but there's certain triggers that make it annual, or every 3 months, or every month,
Oh,
depending on
okay.
your.
Okay, I was thinking they were semi, or every 2 years.
So it's a bit of a moving target.
I
Other
can-
than that, so that can.
Okay. Any other questions on 66? Okay, let's go over to 67.
67, building maintenance. Again, I don't know that we've had too many changes here. Any questions? on-
Need changes there.
Do you see anything on the horizon, long-term capital plan or anything that you just want to have on our radar?
I mean, I think we've got some, going down the list of building improvements, there's some things here on 68 that we can talk about. So this is where we've got sort of the regular charges, and we've tried to combine a lot of these charges. I know Jack has brought that up before with us as well, so.
On professional development, form an MPSI Leadership Conference, 3-year commitment. You're going to be committed?
Okay.
What, could you explain what that is?
That is it's the MPSI, it's a leadership training for basically foremen or supervisors. This would be year 3 of the training. It's a really good training. A lot of it deals with workplace violence, dealing with different personalities, dealing with the public.
Problem bosses.
Problem bosses. That's this year, it's supposed to be on this year's.
Yeah. It sounds excellent.
It's actually, it starts 7 in the morning, and a lot of it goes to 8 at night. They cram a lot into a week,
So it's a week each year?
1 week a year.
Good.
Well, congratulations on your journey thus far. It sounds really good.
Sometimes I'd rather be working.
Where do they do this at?
This is Mount Pleasant. You can go to class and go lose all your money at casino.
Right.
Sounds like college. Moving on. 68.
68, some building improvements here, perimeter wall and block repairs, 2-way radio base station relocation antenna, gutter repairs, and then salt dome and some roof work for the following year.
It's been a while.
So just some real kind of odds and ends as far as that goes for building improvements. The 2-way radio base station, Sean will give us some
We've got current.
increase
Yeah.
coverage.
Our current station is, the antenna on it is very limited, it's very small. It doesn't reach as far as the old system. This will be to get us upgraded to a much larger antenna. It's gonna reuse the existing antenna, but it get us connected with digital versus the whole thing system.
Moving down to equipment, we've got a couple riding mowers, a paint line machine, landscape trailer, and then looking at an anti-system for the following year. And again, this follows the CERP as far as equipment goes. So, some smaller items for 19 and 20 out of general fund. Radio equipment, that's just basically contingency for some of our radio equipment vehicles. Got some larger expenses here, a couple pickup trucks, another hook truck that we've talked about, the value of the hook trucks, and really trying to decrease the fleet is the end game there. Instead of having the salt trucks that sit for the extent of the year, to be able to use those trucks for other things makes a lot of sense. And the hook trucks have come a long way. We're not the first to start using these. You never want to be the first. They've been used for many years now, and so we're ready to start using them. We've taken delivery finally of our first one just recently, so we're looking forward to next winter and what that new piece of equipment will be able to
Let's
do. Is
not look forward too quickly since we're still coming out here.
Another sort of utility vehicle. Some of you may remember the toolcat that we purchased a number of years ago now, maybe 5. Toolcat's been a great machine for us, a smaller machine that can do a little bit of everything. It's not great at anything, but it's good at a lot of things. This piece of equipment is a little bit lighter than the toolcat, and will give us even more flexibility to do more things without inflicting maybe as much damage because of how heavy that toolcat is. And then the following year, a couple dumps, pickup that's got a dump body on it, and then another dump truck. So, any questions on 68?
Just a quick one. Can you speak to some of the green or higher efficiency considerations that go into, I mean, there's a lot going on here with building maintenance, improvements, vehicle purchases, anything like that? What kind of considerations have played a part in what you're proposing?
Well, I think number one, building maintenance wise, we've tried to combine a lot of those charges together that we could get some overlap on, and I think that's been one thing that has certainly become more efficient. Even the labor costs that we've tried to combine is going to make things a lot better, both on our end as well as finance, when it comes to tracking and time sheets and those sort of things. So, we talked about the hook trucks, increasing efficiency. I don't think there's any question about that. I think those are really the big things.
The hook truck does have, what they call it, it's a wing plow, so it's a plow that actually sticks out of the side of the truck as well. That should, fingers crossed this winter, we're really hoping that it can take, normally we run 2 trucks in tandem, now I can run 1 truck and cover the same width. It's like, hopefully pull some guys in reserve and not wear them out all night. Be here the next day and get something else done.
Any additional questions on 68? Seeing none, I will to 70.
So 70 is 101 for the garage. There's too much here. I mean, we've talked about getting some help in the garage, and that's something we continue to look at. We talked about that hybrid position. It had its own set of complexities that we didn't anticipate at first, kind of asking for the moon and understanding that it's not always practical. So, but looking long-term, I think, you know, we've got to get some type of backup in the garage, you know, to have one mechanic for a community of our size, for the amount of equipment that is not getting any smaller, it's not getting any less technical, you know, we've got to start thinking about that, so that's something I'm certainly cognizant of and we'll have to address.
Do you have an estimated cost
For
backup?
a staff person? I think we were looking at an OP1 type classification, you know, so it would be in that general pay scale. You know, the mechanics pay is certainly higher than that. We're looking to bring somebody in, sort of test them out, have them assist with preventive maintenance type work to start. Theoretically, it could be a replacement for the mechanic. I don't think that's a guarantee per se, but you know, it would allow us to keep things moving too when Jim goes on vacation.
Is that the next year?
Yeah. I don't think it's unreasonable to think, you know, in the next couple of years that we're gonna be looking for that. It's a struggle because, as we discussed this more, you know, I'm looking at middle management help, you know, it's something that we're struggling with too. I mean, there's a lot of needs there. We've got to figure out what the priorities are and try to nail that down.
Ultimately, a budget is just a list of priorities, so we have to figure out where we need to fill those, and how we can make that happen over the course of the next few years. Anything else on 70 from anybody? Seeing none, let's move on to 71.
Not too much new and exciting here. We've obviously have moved the vehicle maintenance PSO costs to their own account. That was a few years ago. We've got a couple new pieces of equipment coming in. We've got some upgrades to our current in-ground hoist. You know, we just bought the mobile unit as well, so we're allocating some funds here to do some upgrades to our existing system, which I don't think Sean has been touched in quite some time. And got a brake machine in for 1920, and then for 2021 a shop air compressor replacement.
This is a brake machine for turning rotors.
Yeah, I feel like we've had that in the budget before too, and I don't know if ever pulled the trigger on it or not, but I think we can, yeah.
Yeah, that has to be sent out now, right?
No, we still have our old one. We actually bought,
Oh, yeah, but that's still old. This is a replacement.
oh, this actually one we bought from Center Garage and closed.
Oh, okay. You better replace it, it's old.
Any additional questions on 71? Okay, let's hop over to 72.
So this is our street lighting account. We've got numerous street lights around town, metered, unmetered, the whole kit and caboodle, most of which are not under our direct control. We pay DTE for O&M on many of these. And then we've got a little bit in here as well for some of the holiday lights as well with the DEA. We had done 2 phases of LED conversions a few years ago now. Basically addressing the low-hanging fruit. Financial benefits of what we have left, as I understand it, are not as fruitful as those, so it's been a little bit, you know, making further changes has not been quite as attractive, so, you know, we continue to stay in touch with our customer rep when he's around and keep a pulse on that, but any questions on the street lighting?
Do we have any idea what percentage are LED that are converted?
The majority are, Russ, I don't have that on here, I don't think. can certainly get the number. You can,
Yeah.
you could probably do some math in here to figure it out, but it was, the majority of them have been converted. You can see the 465, 65 watt LEDs as you move to the bottom third there. So, many of them have been converted.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on page 72? Okay, so now where to next?
So, let's go to
97?
99. 97 would work.
All right, 97, we are in the major streets department.
Revenues. Here we recognize the Act 51 revenue, and Mark, I don't know that you've got the latest and greatest numbers in. I know they distribute their spreadsheets out, but we take a shot at estimating that revenue. We've also got the summer and winter maintenance. That's the reimbursement that we get from our COC for sweeping and plowing and salting the 12 mile. We sell salt to Huntington Woods and Berkley schools, so estimating some revenue there as well, based on past history. Tree program sales. Again, we're splitting that between major and local. We've been right around 100 trees every year. It's remarkably consistent. So we certainly hope that continues.
Any questions on 97? All right. 98? Any questions on 98 as well? No, I don't look like much is. All right.
99. So this is 464. This is overall street maintenance operations. Don't have any big changes here. I will say.
Changing the accounting for the laborers.
Laborers, yep.
And the overtime that we put in here accounts for all the overtime in 202. So we just
Okay.
kind of
So all
combined
of the overtime
it.
is
So
202.
whether it's, right, so
Okay.
whether it's street maintenance or whatever,
Awesome.
the other ones are tree, blah, blah, blah. We combined it all and put it under one.
Road supplies. We'll have to keep tabs on that one. I think we've hit our budget for the current fiscal year, just so everyone's aware.
For coal patch?
For primarily coal patch, there's some stone there too, but it's primarily coal patch, so.
We're done.
I am I'm sure we're gonna probably eclipse that a little bit.
So what is a better number? I mean, because it looks like in the past couple of years, we're at 62, 66, but we're
Yeah.
at 5 right now, so
It's 6 or 7, a better
is there a better
I
number to
think,
have
I
there?
don't know if we're just trying to be a little more optimistic or not, but yeah, I think 7 is probably a
Fair
better
number.
number.
Council have any issues?
No.
No, we don't need to run out of patch.
That's right. Fix the darn roads.
Oh, yeah. That's familiar.
We have that noted to 7? Good. Okay, all right. 100.
100. Contractual services, again, primarily spray patch, and again, we've cognizant of the right place for spray patch. I know Itapa got a little bumpy on us and tried to mill some off and do it again, and it's still kind of bumpy, so. But in the more local mobilized roads as well, I think it works out pretty well, so I would like to continue to move forward with spray patch, and
Beers goes in it real well.
it does better than cold patch. And, we've been doing more ourselves, hot patch work, because we have a trailer now. Of course, you can only do hot patch certain times of the year. They don't sell hot patch year round, so so we're doing a lot more hot patching, which also saves a whole better than cold patch does. So continue to try to improve. We're always going to have those patching activities. Obviously, we hope to have less and less of those. With the road millage and the first year work, and hopefully we'll continue to do that when we get some more permanent repairs in the ground, so they're all over the place, and we don't have to continue to fill holes and holes and holes.
Despite the problems we encountered on Catalpa, do you still think that cold patch is the best way forward? Or, you know, with, I know on some roads, but on a road like Catalpa, which makes it travelable more.
Yeah, and it's tough too, because it's a struggle between putting down enough material so that it lasts, but then if you put down too much, it's bumpier, right? And that's a fine line dealing with the contractor and trying to dial that in. You know, we talked about maybe trying to mill off some and do some other things to try to keep it more level, but there's no question that it has saved us cold patch. I mean, make no mistake, it's not a good solution for us, but you know, one thing we can think about is getting our own little mill machine. We talked about it, and doing our own little bit of mill and fill work, where we could have our own guys do a small mill, and then we put the hot mix. You know, when we mill out a section on the asphalt roads, and we put a hot mix in, nice and smooth, just like you would pay an asphalt contractor to do. So that's something that, you know, we're thinking about, and we made. You know, we don't want to become asphalt contractors by any stretch of the imagination.
If you got a milling machine, if you got a milling machine and did that, you'd almost need a peanut roller to put it down.
True.
So you need both those pieces of equipment. You need a milling machine and a peanut roller.
Huntington Woods has a peanut roller, right, Sean?
I feel like if you guys have a milling machine, you're gonna be doing a lot of milling.
So we've been using Huntington Woods machine more than they have, Sean said. So, you know, we obviously do many things for Huntington Woods too. So any chance that we can get to use something that they have, you know, that's something we want to be cognizant of too. You're absolutely right. You have to roll this stuff too. It has not been a problem getting their peanut roller for our work. So.
Put that on your list for milling machine. If you've got a peanut roller already, you might have to get a milling machine, and then you can swap back and forth.
Is that in the cert?
It is not in the cert that I remember.
We're talking Huntington Woods in the front one.
Yeah.
Borrow it all the time,
Do they charge you when you use it? Like, no, you don't have to charge you all these, but in between. Okay, I'm just curious.
Well, there's side agreements we don't talk about.
Well, now it's gonna be broadcast now. Strike that, yeah, jeez. All right, moving on. Anything else on 100?
Engineering, so this is where we have the major road piece of engineering charges, where we try to capture all of those projects and charges. You'll note the 12-mile resurfacing assistance. I've allocated a little bit of time there, so just to refresh everybody, 2020, big project on 12-mile. Our COC will be resurfacing 12 from Greenfield to Coolidge, so that's a major project. I really don't anticipate, they have their own engineering staff. This is their road, their inspection, allegedly their communications people. I mean, but I think all of us can understand that we're going to get involved in that in some shape or form on a few different levels. And so we've already attended a pre-survey meeting. We'll be attending, I'm sure, design meetings with them to stay abreast of that project and the scope and the schedule and the events that we have. All
Yeah,
of
they're
those.
gonna work around their events.
All of those, I would assume so, but we've got a lot of events. I don't know if all of the events can be worked around, and it's, we're gonna have to make some decisions as a city. I don't know that they're gonna be able to, obviously, we hope that they can work around everything, but this is a big job.
I'm getting a lot of questions from chamber members, also, like, where the chamber meeting spot is, so as soon as we get a time schedule, I'd like to get a copy of that, so I can brief the businesses, so.
And the DDA as well, you mentioned earlier about the more advanced notice we have, the better in terms of events from people coming to us, making requests, and likewise, I think the sooner we understand the approximate timeframe and duration from our COC, then we in turn can help manage commitments with the folks that are queued up to do some cool things.
Will do.
We got 2 entries in here for the RCOC call now resurfacing, $10,000 in engineering and $200,000 down here in construction. What does $200,000 cover?
So we have a match that we are responsible for the project. Even though it's an RCOC road in our town, we are on the hook for 1% of that cost, so.
I can do it for free.
I guess not. So I've been talking to them, I've got some emails, I think I even printed them out to try to understand what that commitment is going to be, and so I'm comfortable that this is the right number for us. But obviously, it's still early, they haven't even determined the scope of their job yet, so I have a hard time.
But it's an
But-
it's still 80-10-10 though, right?
80-10-10, and, they have a federal cap on Fed money that is going into this project, because there's a big part of this is federal money.
So it's not tri-party.
So, and then we're gonna exhaust our tri-party money on it, so this is the resulting end game,
Project will cost significantly more than $200,000.
Yes.
Significant.
$1.9 million, yeah, but that doesn't go, that's a long stretch with a lot of ADA issues, and, so I think the fitness that we're getting on 12 Mile is shrinking by the week, based on them gathering topo and figuring out what's out there.
Will there be opportunity during the process to talk about lane configurations? Is there any talk about something different than what we have today, or is that further down the road for us?
Yeah, I don't think it is. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's strictly just
What we have today?
the footprint that they have and addressing the surface condition.
Okay.
Yeah, curb to curb, the width isn't like.
Right, I wasn't talking about like a demo to make the street wider, I was just wondering, kind of like we're doing at Coolidge, we're reconfiguring the nature of the space that we already have. I was curious if there was any dialogue about that on 12 Mile, or if it's just take whatever we have today, just put a nice new surface and put it back exactly the way it is.
That's as far as the conversation's been so
Okay.
far. We can always have some different ones if we need to. Road commission is not as open to things like this as, like local road agencies are.
Sure, of course.
They're changing, they're evolving, they're coming along slowly, surely. They've made more improvement in the last 10 years than I would probably, most people would probably like to admit. They're coming along.
We don't have that control at all.
No, right. Derek and I we're, again, very preliminary conversations about non-motorized, improving the non-motorized path between 12 and Webster as well. Very early, but we know there's a need based on the condition of the asphalt pathway that's there, crumbling, very bumpy. And then we're hoping people would use non-motorized options as far as traveling to the future Woodward Corners development as well. We can only get up to Webster at our city borders, but that is not something that, the condition of that path is not lost on us, and the potential use and need for that is not lost on us as well. So if we end up going that route, we'll likely show up in this particular section of Range Road Fund.
Has there been any discussion with Royal Oak on getting it on layout?
No, not directly yet, but I would like to see, whatever we do, I'd like to see them carrying on, because they're just excited about this project as everybody else. We can get people to Webster, and then Royal Oak and hopefully carry the rest of the way.
I do like the idea of kind of having at least some opportunity to sit down over a map and kind of say, here's what we're thinking, what are you thinking? So at least they can understand where our heads are at.
Any other questions on 100 or 101? Seeing none, we'll continue.
102 is street sweeping.
Swept away.
It's been swept away. Again, as Lori alluded to, a lot of those charges up at the top, waivers and overtime, have been moved to the main account. So there's not much left here to talk about. This may be food for thought for, we may even think about, eliminating this account in the future, I'm wondering, potentially. We'll see how things go, but sweeping, yeah,
Merging it
we've got equipment rental here, which maybe is the biggest piece that has the value, so maybe we don't, but there's not much left.
You have a lot of departments that could be line items, but I wanted to do baby steps. I
agree.
We had almost 90 accounts in each, and I think I more than reduced them in half. But again, there was a lot of work put into, and I'll give David some credit to what he originally did, but on an annual basis, those numbers do change, and I think simplifying it, I'm all for simplifying where I can, so this does make it, and I still think you'll get, accurate numbers of where the money's going, so, you have to please the state with Act 51, and it was much more simplified where I came from, and they were perfectly fine.
What is the equipment around the truck?
That accounts the time for the street sweeper.
Okay, that's all that's, okay, that's what I thought.
Moving into street trees, major streets, again, the same scenario at the top. We're moving down to program supplies and contractual services.
So this is where we purchase all of the trees from. We're hoping to see a little bit of an increase with street trees. I don't know that you've seen any results of it yet, but anytime that we have a removal in the right of way, we are now going to, tree board was instrumental in this as well. But I think it's a good plan to try to offer those residents that had a removal in the front, that with their approval, that they could get a new right-of-way tree at no charge. So what we're doing is we're using the list of removals from Hart. And when tree program comes around, those residents are getting a tree packet with notation about this offering for a new tree. Now, obviously, they have to then take the step to reach out to us and move that process forward. And certainly, if they're not wanting a tree, we've never been one to force one upon them, even though the tree board would like to do that. But I think this is a good step, helping to make that a little smoother, recognizing that removals are a part of our life, and the silver maples and on and on and on, that we can offer something to the residents. So, we're hoping to see a little jump there, but you don't really know. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Question. So we don't really have there's not really a significant jump in the budget to cover those costs? Because we don't know what it will be.
Yeah, what I found is that I think even some of the previous years, we budgeted over a little bit more than had actually been purchased to Dennis. So I don't want to overshoot the number too much, but and part of it is too, we're trying to, with 202 and 203, we have some, everybody knows we've got majors and locals. There was a time when we were just doing it 50-50. we're trying to be reflective of where the tree gets planted a little bit more as well. That's a work in progress, but obviously if a tree is planted on a local street, I'd love to make sure that we're recognizing it under local revenue, but that's been a bit of a moving target as well. And I don't know, when we get to local streets, we'll see how that number compares, but we do see more plantings on the local streets than the majors, because we have many more miles of streets too.
And then have we, we're about halfway, 3/5 of the way through Hart, starting their more major trimming program. So have we thought about retroactively offering this to some of the people that got their early, got their trees taken down early on, and I don't want them sort of left behind, and now half the city gets the new trees and half the city doesn't. And I think we do have a clear delineation since we brought Hart on board and they started in earnest catching up with the backlog of work.
I mean, honestly, I would have no problem, if a resident calls, working with them to try to do that. The sticky point is we could potentially get into a reimbursement type situation too, if some of those residents that purchased a tree wanted to reimburse because they planted one on their own. So, I think if there's a resident out there that's interested to reach out to us, we would have no problem trying to work with them. See, I have no problem spending this money on trees, and if new ones don't take ownership of it, and somebody else had one removed, and we can verify that via our records, we're on board. I know it becomes trickier with somebody that may have purchased one and paid a price and now wants to get reimbursed, and how do we go about that, but I'm open to that. It'll be interesting this first year to see what percentage of those that had a tree removed signed up to have one, so it'll be eye-opening.
So I guess that's a question that for the rest of the council, if we're willing to, if we get enough demand, if we're willing to fund that, and if we wanted to advertise that, starting on, if you had a tree removed after this date, so that it's not just a hidden secret, so it's actually advertised and people know to
reach out.
Yeah.
And maybe we see how this first year goes, and then we'll have at least a better understanding of the quantity, and then we can open it up. And maybe we probably would have to set some kind of time, how far along. We have to be able to verify it in our records.
I think that makes sense to me, to try and see what happens this year, see what the response is, and then give us a better idea of what we're looking for in the future.
I'm comfortable with that. That makes sense.
And then again, have that discussion between now and then, how far, what is that implying, and what's going to be accepted versus.
Sean wants everything to be free.
Everybody, you want a tree?
Okay.
Comes out of your paycheck, buddy.
Sean's buying trees for everybody.
Trees don't grow on trees or anything.
No.
I mean,
Because realistically, we struggle planting with getting our numbers.
All right, let's get back on track here. We are.
Real quick, Dan.
We're doing good there, bro. We were doing well, now we're behind.
Yeah, sorry, this will be hopefully very quickly. Can you just speak real quickly to, during the purchasing process, the diversity of species of these trees, so as not to have an invasive species come in and.
Sure, and that process has been going on for many years. We offer many different types of trees. We've long since stayed away from silver maples and other trees that frankly should be planted in the right of way. So we work with both Hart and Marine City and the nursery each year to come up with those selections. I think this year, with input from the tree board as well, that we're going to look to decrease maple offerings. In looking back at some of the numbers of the past years, maples are very popular with residents. It's a very common tree, and I think just has a lot of name appeal. But we're finding that percentage-wise, quite a few new maples, and we don't want to. I think it would be good to maybe even pull them off of those potentially, so that we can get more diversity. So yes, it's something we look at every year. We work with the nursery to make sure that we can get the trees that we want. But I mean, how many species are on that list, Sean? I'm sure it's a dozen.
Yeah, there's got to be 10 Yeah, 8 to a dozen, depending on the year. Nursery always gives us a really large list, and we go through.
Kind of pare it down a little bit.
We don't want the pear trees, we don't want these, and just
Okay.
trying to get rid of some of the poplar trees to get some of the other trees planted.
Okay, thank you.
Talk to us about catch basins.
Real quick before catch basins, just contractual services. I spent quite a bit of time trying to get these numbers, and they get fine-tuned every year, but you can see we've gotten to the point now where we've got good numbers as far as hours, crew hours working on the different activities. So I run through those every year. You see the crew hour times as well. So anyway, I think it's just a good one to kind
It's good to have precision.
of keep tabs on. I have a more detailed spreadsheet that I've been using for columns of all the activities that Hart does. So I have that information, and obviously anytime anybody is looking for it, just let me know.
Do we budget any overtime for Hart in case we got tree damage during a storm or at night or anything? We gotta bring Hart in if it's more than we can handle?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that in here, but.
I include that, Jack, in my spreadsheet, at least the past years. The answer to your question is we have that, and I incorporate it in my spreadsheet, which then goes into these numbers, so.
Okay.
All right, moving to 105, catch basins. Yeah, nothing real exciting here per se. Again, this is another account that as we move on through the years, maybe we decide to simplify even more, but questions on catch basins?
Materials and supplies, is that the tablets that you drop into them?
No, actually, it's the stuff to build them.
Oh,
So the
okay.
precast block and things that we use to build the structures. The cats are in water and sewer accounts.
Oh, they're in the wires.
Do we, put the second factor rental in this one for the cleaning?
No, I think we must have that in 5.2, Jeff.
I didn't see it here, I would, that's okay.
And again, could it be in here? It certainly could. We've got it in the 592 account. It's,
As long as we got it.
you know, this is under roads and catch basins. It's, to me, it's more of a sewer function probably more than roads. Right.
Okay.
106 is grass and weeds. Again, you'll notice the change in labor time and overtime have been moved. We pay for seed, fertilizer, restoration work from here.
Do you use any pesticides?
We use fertilizer.
Okay, I'm getting questions from residents already about pesticides, and I told them no, that we're just using fertilizer. So,
What does weed control mean?
Well, what weed control, I mean, pesticides is killing the bugs, correct?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, weed control
Is-
is dandelions, basically.
Got it,
So, yeah.
okay.
they don't want that either.
I mean, that's,
They like that a lot.
we do the boulevard, Coolidge Boulevard specifically, you know, again, this is a city decision, and you've seen Royal Oak, I'm sure, and it's Line Central, and,
It's not a broad base, it's a spot treatment. So how long is she standing, it's that spot, just blanket the entire area.
One of the residents saw signs that it had been treated, and I told them that was fertilizer, not pesticides or any other poison.
pesticides has been a big one that we've used. And again, doesn't mean we change, it's just the dandelions grow out of control in those
Yes.
boulevards. They do. Contractual services, we get some charges for Woodward Avenue maintenance. It's typically through Royal Oak, so there's some allocations there for that as well. questions on 106? Street signs. Again, labor, overtime has been moved out. Program supplies, various sign replacements. This is another one that I think we're gonna need to, with council's permission, raise the budget on program supplies, because I do believe we've hit our number for the current fiscal year. And my suspicion is a big part of that is the posts associated with the new street name signs, and I'm sure that we've all noticed those are going up and continue to go up, and I think look great. So I think I would like to bump that number up a little bit if I could.
So one time, do you think once we can cut, I mean, if we look back, we see 10, we see 4, we see 9. now
Yeah.
5,
No, we've already purchased the signs themselves. It's just opposed to the installation.
So this is really just the posts and some of the miscellaneous hardware that goes along with that.
So maybe not necessarily a long-term.
It's not gonna be a long-term thing, and as you know, we're not, hitting this full force either, and we knew it's gonna be over a period of time, and, but I think I would like to adjust these numbers a little bit.
To what?
So for major streets, I think I'd like to go from 5 to 7 if I could.
Local's gonna be higher?
What's that?
Local's gonna be a little higher than that? A few more signs there.
Just a question of curiosity, what percentage of those signs do you think are getting rid of?
I knew somebody's gonna ask me. You have a feeling, Sean? I mean,
Just very rough percentage. Like a quarter, 50.
I was gonna say 30%.
Okay.
What would you say if you had to guess?
All right, I would say more.
40. Okay, so,
I'm just judging how many posts you get or.
yeah. I mean, and I would hope, that I'm seeing more and more of them, out and about. Mike seems to be hitting, the complete street as he goes, so you're unlikely to see just one unless there was some odd damage or something, but, he's going all the way down Catalpa, doing some of the major streets, I think have been hit, border streets, those sort of things, so.
Well, if I may, I do appreciate the desire to increase both here and in major and then also in local. Being a big fan of those post reflector strips and things like that, I could definitely see the benefits of those advantages. So appreciate that we're looking to do more of that.
Okay.
Is that just for 1920 increasing?
I think I would go both years. Up to 7,000 would be my recommendation.
Okay, any council have any issues with that?
No.
It's a short-term thing, we have to decide this time. Okay, moving on.
Memberships, this is where we pay for our TIA membership. TIA is also split with local roads. I think other departments take advantage of this too, which is just fine, but just so council is aware, I know other departments are taking advantage of TIA, and we have done a much better job of taking advantage of that resource than we have in other years as well, so that's good. They can provide assistance to us that we would typically pay an engineering consultant for, so I think we've done a much better job of taking advantage of that benefit.
Anything else on 108s? Okay.
So, we have some contractual services there. Again, that's long line intersection marking work. I had the note in there about Coolidge, and we'll have to, obviously restriping Coolidge now between 11 and 12 is going to be a much larger undertaking than it was before, so that's something that we need to keep an eye on. Equipment maintenance, this is the traffic signal work that we pay RCOC for, so RCOC handles all of of our traffic signals for us, the operation, maintenance, repairs, basically everything. And we get monthly bills from them. Any questions on equipment maintenance?
Nope. Let's keep moving. We're coming up on already. Already
We're
through your
gonna
allotted
schedule
time,
it.
and you
Talk
have a long
faster.
way to go.
I'll try not to hit as many things here.
Well,
Um,
like I said, so when we're going through these, obviously we want to hit the highlights if there's big differences.
Yeah.
And then we get to the end of the page, council can certainly, we have our own notes, we'll be able
The
to
203
address any of those.
203 should go faster, obviously, it's a lot of the same drill, so. Winter maintenance, again, I make estimates on tonnage of salt, brine here, so you've got a unit price locked in with Mitten, so we feel pretty comfortable with those numbers.
Questions on 110? Okay.
Yeah, that's just
Yep.
administrative,
Okay.
pretty much audit.
No, nothing on 111? Okay.
Okay, looks like we're going to 117 and local streets. Any questions on revenues for local streets?
We have our Act 51.
Trees, that, in some cases it says 100, and some it says 150, and some it says 70-30, and some it says 50-50. Are they two different kinds of tree lines that we're talking, or is that just from one year to the next? Like the tree section we had just before?
Yeah.
It said 150
You know,
trees split 70-30?
We've tried to
It could
move
just be-
more towards a 70-30 split. So we can take a look at that. and see.
Yeah, just for consistency. I agree with the rationale that you expressed earlier, and maybe just making sure that the footnotes are, is a note for today.
It's further complicated by salt, for instance, though, because salt is just the opposite. Salt is 70-30 the other way, because we salt majors, but we don't locals. So if you're understanding that, more money for salt goes into the majors than locals. So yeah, it's confusing. So, but you're right. Try to get it as consistent as we
Sure,
can.
of course.
Any other questions on 117?
I have a question on bond forfeits. I see that this jumps all over the place. 2,000, 7,000, 5,000, 22,000, 15,000.
That's, the contractor's working there right away and they drop the ball, we gotta pick it up and run with it. That's us, our cost.
So we had to do that a lot this year.
And we had a lot of bad contractors. I mean, this is just a guess, that we don't, haven't got a clue what it's gonna be.
That's correct. And
It's some of that cleaning up old stuff too. I know that they've been going back and cleaning up some of old bonds that were sitting out there. They're cleaning them up, and when they do that, it
I don't think
It
that,
goes
not
to-
just for
no.
this is the one,
Okay.
we need to go and send it down.
Okay.
All right. 118?
nothing here that's, no big changes on 118 from my end. Any questions?
And just the overtime, but we've already talked about that. We're on the same page. Okay.
119, one highlight here, or one, something new, Henley and Oxford sidewalk ramps. So those of you that are familiar with that particular intersection, we've had a couple residents that have expressed concern about the status of those ramps near the school. And so this is a project that has evolved from those concerns. So we're allocating some funds here to improve those ramps. It will require approval of the property owner on the corner because of the grading involved. So it should be noted that, certainly if the resident doesn't allow us to grade back or do something else, then that could certainly complicate the project and delay it or what have you. But it's an area that's got pretty steep slopes that I think we should address. So that's
I've got a question on engineering costs. I've looked at this and it appears that engineering costs are, what, 22% of our projects? That seems rather high to me.
I think there is some fluff in there too, Jack, for other projects that may not be defined. 22%, from my perspective, it doesn't shock me coming from that arena. I mean, 18s were not unusual, so, I'm always looking at that percentage of the construction costs. Smaller jobs are more expensive, largers are more efficient. There's just some efficiencies that are involved in that.
Okay, well, we just need to continue to watch that to make sure that we're staying in the ballpark. I think personally it should be below 20, majority of the time. Because that's higher than federal guidelines for major projects anyway.
And I think if you look at the budgets throughout the years, that we've been pretty good about staying within budget on those.
Is it possible to, Derek, that some of the figure 88 ramps for sidewalks, we cannot get reimbursed through CDBG, so this is where we put the excess for engineering. That could be driving it up.
Oh, okay.
Some of the projects where we have to do the engineering, but there's no
project.
There's no project
Okay,
cost.
that could, yeah, okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
It's not a direct relationship.
Any questions on 119 or 120? Okay. On 121.
121 is street sweeping, so big thing here is probably just equipment rental. Questions on sweeping? Street trees on 122.
Yeah, 150 and 730, so probably just a notation between the two different amounts or something.
Yeah, I see that note. We've been making that transition from 50/50 to 70/30 with the lean towards local because we've got the more miles.
That's right, of course. For sure.
You can see that you captured the removal replacement here.
Any questions on program supplies or contractual here?
Okay, on 122.
We're stumped on this one.
What's a tree pipe?
One out on a branch on that one.
Yeah.
I don't even have these prepared.
All right, moving on. Catch basins in the local streets.
No big changes here as well in materials and some removal costs.
Any questions on 124 catch basins or 125 grass and weeds in the local streets? Okay. So, local street signs?
Local street signs and going back to 202. I wanted to see if we had what that split was. So it looks like.
5 to 7, and this is.
So if we could go, I don't think we can go over, you can see remember that 17-18 activity was when we bought the new name signs. With your approval, I'd like to take the 7,000 to 9,000.
Both years.
Both years.
Any issues with that, council?
No.
Seeing none, we can make that change.
The other side of the TIA membership is here. And then a little more limited piece of traffic signal maintenance. Again, most of the traffic signals are on major streets.
Any questions on 126 through 127? Leave the street sign portion. Winter maintenance.
128 is winter maintenance, so this should be the 70-30 split in the opposite direction here.
And that's not in the footnotes, that's your footnotes, that's just a flip-flop.
And we should check my own notes. Yeah, I've got the 70-30, probably doesn't hurt to put that note into the system if we can.
Because I was confused with that too easily.
We see ourselves, Brian, equipment rentals, any questions on 128?
Nope.
Okay. 129 looks like a pretty boring page. Lost a lot of things there, where we used to account for a lot of different folks in that area.
Yes,
We're not
when
doing that
David
anymore.
was here, everybody was split.
So I got a
So-
finance director, we have a finance, we had a lot of different people that were in here that were
Yes.
moved for accounting purposes, which is why you see so many zeros the last few years on this
Yep.
page. Okay, any questions on 129? Okay.
All right, I think the next jump is to 226, 135, if I'm,
Yeah, page 135. Not page 226, page 135.
Correct.
226. Solid waste.
solid waste. So the revenue side, you can see the rate increases here for residential and commercial trash. You can see the rate increases that we are seeing at a wholesale level, and then the rate increases that we're looking to propose for our customers as well. And, Mark and Finance assists us with looking at the big picture to make sure that the revenue and expenditure sides are matching up, Mark, and I certainly get the information on the rate increases that we see at a wholesale level, and then we're appreciative of the assistance of Finance to make sure that we then pass along the proper charges to our customers.
Looking at revenues on this page.
Correct.
Any questions on the revenue side for 135? Are we still selling as many of those toters?
Yes.
It seems to me that obviously it should happen by now. As many, we're still selling them pretty consistently.
Consistently, yes.
Good. Excellent. They're great. They're very efficient. Yeah. Best decision I ever made.
Yeah, we don't see that slowing down anytime soon.
Good. Okay. Any other questions on 135? Seeing none. Move on.
136. Don't really have much to add there.
Rest of the revenues.
137, we start appropriations.
Again, we have a lot of zeros here from where parts of people used to be. They're no longer here anymore. We have, I think, half of the staff in here.
Well, I'd like to get library.
We got library, we got building, we got treasury, we got finance. Finance, city manager. So we're cleaning a lot of those out.
No, that that many people.
A lot of people.
Solid waste.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
So, looking at the rest of 137 minus, obviously the zeros that we mentioned, so we still see some labor in there, overtime, part-time staff. Internal service at the bottom, labor administration, changed from 2017 to 2018 to now. Any questions on 137?
contractual, right? That's part of their contract.
That is, yes, I'm sorry, yes. Part of the union contract for uniforms, and there's employees that we section out. Just everybody's trying to figure that out, and every account sort of has some employees in it for uniforms. Rubbish collection and trash disposal, so these are basically our charges from SACRA.
On that, I know China's been cutting back how much recycling they've taken, and for some cities, that's really hurt their ability to afford continuing recycling programs. Do we see any hints of that happening with Clerk?
There has been certainly a drop in commodity pricing. There's no question about that, and time will tell if that will continue, but SACRA has, I know some communities have chosen to drop recycling altogether, and, you know, SACRA has absolutely no intentions of doing that. You know, we are still receiving payment for, I think, everything but glass. That's what my memory tells me. So rest assured that there's still value there. And then there's also the value of not having that stuff in the landfill, which is
Cost avoidance.
a benefit to all of us as well. So it's something that we're continuing to monitor. I think every month now, the manager of SACRA is providing us as board members, representatives with updated figures about that. But the commodity pricing has taken a hit. China's part of that.
Would that impact our rebate that we get for the recycling and possibly increase our costs?
It does. It does. Again, I think SACRA is doing a great job of actually accepting material from even other sources other than the member communities, which has helped to offset a lot of those charges because they're third-party revenue, I guess I'll call it, at the Troy facility. So, you know, they're trying to do things to maximize the capacity of that single-stream facility. My understanding is they're getting very close to that number now, even though they estimated a safety factor there. It's become a valuable spot for communities that are not even SACRA members. So it's something to monitor because it's been on the news and very public issue about recycling. But
yeah, I just wanted to make sure we are capturing that so we don't get caught off guard if prices have increased on us.
trash disposal, rubbish collection, brush disposal. There's got to be questions about brush. This is where we've got the brush charges specifically for paying hard for brush. So I want to let everybody know that brush collection up to this point in the calendar year has been handled by our staff without exception. So our staff has been collecting brush. So obviously I prepare this in January, make these approximations, but I can tell you both from 18-19 projected activity as well as recommended budget that these are going to be even less than what you're seeing here. I don't have those numbers with me now, but I can certainly run those calculations as our staff has been doing all of that collection. The primary reason for that is trying to understand exactly what's happening in the field and having that first-hand account as opposed to Hart, who had a tendency to just, it didn't matter what was out there and collect it. Well, there's maybe some advantages to that. There's also disadvantages to that and safety concerns when you have a manual that tells you how the chipper is supposed to be fed. Now, Hart is Hart, and they've got their own insurance and what have you. But a lot of this came about when we purchased the chipper and we became more familiar with how it's supposed to be run. We talked about the yard tags and the benefit of not having those again. The fact that a lot of the stuff could be placed in yard bags as opposed to shipping. So it continues to be an educational process for residents. And I think the two big things in my mind are making sure that the right things are going into the chipper, number one, because a lot of it wasn't the right size going into the chipper to safely feed it. And that's a change, because the fact is that whether it was Limes or Hart, they were collecting whatever was thrown out there, right, wrong, or indifferent. And then trying to recoup some of those costs from the yard tags. But, you know, if we want to discuss changing frequency, once we get down to understanding what the rules are, you know, we're certainly willing to do that. I will say there's cities like Clawson and Royal Oak that don't have any chipper service. Not once a month, not once a year, never, you know, and there's still some communities that offer the once a week, and then the monthly seems to be the in-between measure. So, you know, I'm sure you hear about brush. We certainly hear a lot about brush. There's no mistaking it. They call us and talk to us all the time. I do feel like the vast majority of residents do understand it. You know, it's more of an education because it is a change. And we're continuing to try to push that, and that's the benefit of them calling in, is every time they call in, staff members have that discussion about the size. Okay, is it the size? And even though they may give us their address, what we found is when we go run that chipper route, that address has nothing. And probably what's happened is whether they tell us or not, the brush was small enough that it could go in a yard waste bag for weekly pickup. So, but anyway, ideas, thoughts, suggestions, I know they're out there, so.
Go ahead. Yeah, just to kind of build off just a little bit what you're saying, I think if we can analyze and take a look at it and see if there is value to maybe increasing the number during peak seasons, the frequency that of the visit, of the brush, maybe spring cleanup, fall cleanup, and then kind of minimize it during summer, as a way to kind of cut down a little bit more.
I will say too that just from a number standpoint, how many were on the list for May, Sean? As of now, so we
Just
chip around.
120.
Okay.
About right now?
So we have 120 homes on the list for pickup starting next Monday, you know, so, 6,400 homes. I mean, it gives some perspective of those that are calling in and using the service. So, that's 120 once a month. What's the peak season? I think we could, or the peak month, we could probably look at that and see. And again, how many of those that are on the list are actual pickups? And we're tracking all this, by the way, because we know that of the 120, we're going to go out and run it, and there's going to be locations that don't have anything out. Again, we're hoping that that's less and less and less as the education part of this comes up.
Like we talked about with the trees, we're gathering this data this year, and then see how things go, look at the numbers, what is the peak, see the peak months or the peak seasons, whether it's a spring, fall, what are the actual numbers in terms of the actual households that are using, and not just ordering services, actually picking up. It's probably gonna be the most important. So that we can make changes moving into next, and if we do need to increase during a couple of peak times, I absolutely open to doing that.
I think this year, this change has been in effect, as we know, technically for 2 years.
Yep.
The truth is that when Hart was handling it, we didn't have as good of a gauge as we're having this year, because even though I told Hart what to do, I don't know, and my hunch is that they were still picking up stuff that was quite small. And so I think evaluating this calendar year, running the numbers and doing a report, a financial sort of summary, would be helpful for all of us, and something that we're certainly looking forward to doing. I've got all the numbers of the past years of what we paid Hart, and now we can throw in this piece, which is predominantly going to be our staff, and kind of see where things fall.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good, thank you.
Quick question. Now, if we do have a major windstorm, then we can make a change and make an extra pickup?
I would think anytime that the list is long enough, that we say, okay, we've got 300 people calling, we better function.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the list, they call in and we know how many stops they have to do.
And Russ pretty much spoke over, I am interested in seeing what the cost would be for more frequent pickup, and hearing the numbers though in perspective, it may not be
2 to 3%.
warranted. And I do think the education, I am totally on board with the but the smaller ones I get feedback and the educational component with that.
There's no question that, with hard driving every street you're in here, we've become much more efficient with this. That just was, that's a lot of time just driving. I mean, it is, especially looking at these percentages. Again, they were picking up everything.
Okay. Anything else on 138? Okay, moving to 139.
139, you will see a change here. Lori, we moved a vehicle maintenance charge from this account to our regular mechanic garage account, which I think makes good sense. We've got equipment, a rear load garbage body for the hook truck, not for 2020 and 2021. Again, as we look to become more efficient, instead of buying used garbage trucks like we have, let's utilize the hook truck to have a garbage body on the back. Still relatively new with respect to those, so
A little more research.
we want to give it a little more time before we just go and buy something that maybe it's a little early, but this is going to happen, and so that's exciting to think that we can use those bodies and have just the garbage truck body that we can pick up and use for leaf collection.
We have to be cognizant of the fact that different bodies cause different load conditions on the prime mover. So a garbage truck typical load cycle is much different than a dump truck typical load cycle. If you ever watch a garbage truck going down the street, there's only 2 speeds, wide open throttle and 0. They go as fast as they can go, and they slam on the brakes. And that's why the biggest expense on a garbage truck is usually brakes and tires. But in a hook truck, it's not designed for that kind of an application. But if you're using it in that application for us, if our drivers understand, we may be okay. But the truck is not set up in the pickup, in the mode of a garbage packer.
We're actually, as far as weight ratings and stuff, the trucks we're ordering are a little bit heavier than our garbage trucks. We try to make sure, looking when we're ordering the chassis, trying to find something that's going to cover everything that you possibly ever want to do with it.
But it's a totally different service by application.
So
Okay.
something to monitor. We don't want to be the first guinea pig on it, so that's something we're going to continue to monitor.
Any other questions on 139? 140?
There.
All right,
141?
where do we go next?
236, yeah,
Um,
236, under enterprise funds. Purple tab.
Now, we do have to do the sidewalks, 470.
Oh, yeah, we did that already, we did that already.
Yeah, we mostly covered it last time.
Sorry.
Activity
Sorry,
happens,
Eric.
so I didn't count
We
on it.
missed it.
Okay.
Wasn't much to say.
So, 236, right?
Yeah.
So water sewer revenues. This is where we recognize, we get a little bit of money for those briquettes for West Nile. We recognize that revenue here. We've got the water sales, non-residential surcharge, fixed water charges. So these are all the charges that we have, the revenues that we're projecting, the increases that we're projecting. Any specific questions here?
Any questions on the revenue side, 236 to 237?
On the water sales side, on the second line, I couldn't make the footnote match the entry there. The entry of $2,332,210. I never did get that, but so the footnote could be wrong, or my calculator could be, I don't know.
What are we talking about?
In the stormwater calculation, I never got the answer 2,332,210. So we might want to check that out. This could be my error very easily, but the $2,090,946 worked out, but the other one didn't, so just check that when you get a chance, please.
under, I'm sorry, which one is it?
Water sales, the second item down.
Water
Storm, yeah.
sales, oh, okay, storm, down in storm utility, okay.
Yeah, that, I'm sure the number's probably correct, but,
No, I'm sure
you know.
I can find it somewhere too, Lori, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
All right, moving into page 238. We see a lot of people coming out of this department who were previously part of it.
We had, just to let everybody know, you see on 238 laborers and a water license stipend. We did have just about every one of our employees take the water license exam this past time, which I don't know if ever's been done before, so I'm very proud of. It's not an easy test, and but those that could benefit from it all took it. And so I'm excited to let you know about that. That is a great sign for all of us, so. Any other questions on 238? Nope. 239?
The only comment on 239 is you're getting a real good deal on postage there at 4 cents per letter, so. The total is right, the 4 cents per letter I think is probably off. Should be 42.8 instead of 0.04 in the postage line. Yeah. Or can I bring my letters in and mail them here?
It's gonna cost you 5 cents.
5 cents. I can do that.
Anything else on 239? Okay, here's the other footnotes are good. Moving into 240.
240, this is where we pay for those West Nile virus briquettes. We're switching the formula this year, which we should do every 3 or 4 years to counter resistance, so we're moving to a different formula this year. And then contractual services, you see a whole slew of miscellaneous activities. Just to highlight a couple, grease control item is a new item for us, bless you. So there is a company that offers grease control. We've got a couple areas where we have restaurants where grease control is something that it's not getting any easier. If anything, we've got more of it. With more restaurants and things, and grease can cause blockages in the pipes. It solidifies in the pipes, so we're looking at other ways to counteract that, other than just being in that pipe more often than maybe other pipes. There's products out there that have bugs that eat that grease and keep it from solidifying so that it flows downstream.
Are these restaurants required to have grease traps or not?
I believe they are.
They should be.
Again, from DPW's end, it's a little bit out of our realm. It's there, it's there. We've got to deal with it. That becomes more of a plumbing kind of question, but
It does, but if they're there and they're not maintained, then it's gonna go
it doesn't
downstream
matter.
to you.
You just run the water hot and you push it downstream.
Yeah, especially the dishwashing company, it's basically superheated water. Yeah, and it carries the grease a long ways.
Any other questions on 240? This is where that Vector rental comes in. Again, that's an every 2-year activity for us, where we're cleaning those sumps of the catch basins. So every catch basin has an area where things can settle in the bottom of it, so you regularly want to clean those. So we run those every 2 years, doing the catch basin rental, so that we can keep our main Vector working on the main lines, which is where we want them. So this is something that we learned from the SAW grant, particularly really helpful is to rent that machine for a short period of time to hit the catch basins, and then we can keep our sewer crew on the sewers and save it from a little bit of abuse, so.
Question on the engineering ERU stormwater audit and survey, is HRC doing the stormwater audit and survey itself, or are they just writing the specs for us to go out and get that done?
Well, the answer to your question is we haven't really determined who's gonna do that, Jack, I'll be perfectly honest. It very well could be HRC, but it very well could be somebody else as well. But I think it's time that we look at the stormwater charges, how they're applied, the amount of impervious. This was done many, many years ago, and things change over time, there's no getting around it. And so revisiting that to make sure that our numbers are as accurate as they possibly can be for those contributing to storm flow, I think is important. So,
I'm also glad to see you got some money here for our GIS programs, because we got to catch up on that.
we do, and we're moving leaps and bounds, and Stan has been an integral part of that. In fact, tomorrow we have our regular meeting with Stan and the HRC team from the GIS end, and I will say that they have done, HRC has done a remarkable job with the GIS, and that team that's involved has kept us moving and has been a real valuable resource for us. And we're a small shop, we don't have obviously a lot of this technical ability, so we rely on them to keep us moving forward and to continue to build that base. So.
On the
Dennis.
stormwater audits, if when we get closer to that, if maybe we could touch base with the environmental committee, because I think they have some ideas along those lines that maybe can encourage people to manage their own stormwater better. We might be able to find some ways to incentivize that.
Other questions on 241, including engineering, cross connections? Seeing no additional questions there, we will move to 242. Questions on 242, we have a lot of items on here. Some variation on a ton in prior year budgeting.
So here you'll see what we're charging for bulk water, bulk sewage rates, as well as non-residential surcharge. So
We will pass through.
and I believe, Mark, are these numbers that you've looked at these numbers, correct?
Yes.
And this still maintains us, second
Second to the bottom.
Yes.
Second to the bottom.
Second to last
Nine
on
down,
from this
yeah.
card.
Yesterday, yeah.
I almost didn't recognize it because it wasn't on an index card.
It will be soon.
Give me a break, I haven't got time to get it.
I'm busy studying the budget, like
Yeah,
we should be, yeah.
Additional questions on 242? Okay.
243, utilities. I think we've got a pretty good handle on those. Any questions on 243?
Moving into 244.
244, we've got construction. You see the water main project, no road work, so we've got that line item set in there for our next water main project. That's based on the rate increases that we've already had, trying to do a water main project every year or two to be more consistent with replacing water infrastructure. That project has not been defined at this point. The millage, we're looking to combine that with the road millage money to do full reconstructs like Harvard. Year one of the millage is not going to be one of those projects. We talked about that. So we'll be looking to have some other type of project involved there. know, again, unless we try to increase the scope of the second year road millage project, that's where that placeholder is. Building improvements, I don't think there's any huge surprises here. We're trying to make some improvements at the DPW. I know Matt's been encouraging me regularly to try to, we could use some of those. It's one of those things that just kind of keeps getting kicked a little bit down the road because of all the other ducks we have in a row here, but that's something that we do need to do and look at, so.
Additional questions on 244? Seeing none, let's move on to 245, 246.
245, there's, and again, this will follow the equipment replacement plan. You'll see some items there towards the top that are programmed in there, and then we go through the same drill again for 20 and 21 as far as replacements and many of the things that we work on. At the bottom, we've got a couple vehicles noted there out of water and sewer, a new meter van for 2021, telehandler as well for that year, and then a replacement rubber tire backhoe that will replace our oldest rubber tire backhoe. So that would be replacing the Volvo, right, Sean?
See our software after that.
Software, which has grown and will continue to grow over the years, and we're looking to make some strides with BS&A and with Stan's assistance to try to create something online that would give residents an ability to check their accounts instead of having to call in. There's days when we get dozens of phone calls on water statuses when many of our neighbors already have, you know, this ability to go in BS&A and check that information with a click of the button. So
Good.
we're excited and we appreciate Stan's help with that.
Is there any software included in here for the upcoming requirement to catalog all of our water lines as far as the condition, lead, copper? We're gonna need some kind of a software system to do that.
We are creating that ourselves, actually. So that is one of the major discussions points. Tomorrow, when we have our GIS meeting, is we're going to be creating that map, if you will. We've done that with fire hydrants via winterization, so we're going to just do the same thing for water services to try to log.
When's the deadline for the report?
There's several deadlines.
January
So
2020?
the preliminary one is due January 2020, and then the more robust one is due 2025.
Thank you.
Moving on to 247 and 248.
So 247, we have the storm sewer portion of this account. Nothing too crazy here, I would say.
Questions on 247?
I appreciate the little bump up on 248, the sewer lining program. I see a little nudge there. I think that's,
248.
that's a good call.
Keep moving.
Yeah. Keep moving.
Why is there no sewer lining activity prior to that? 2016, 2015, 2016.
I can assure you that's not the case.
Oh, I know it's not the case. We certainly know that. I just want to make sure everybody else sees this document.
It all got flushed.
Oh, jeez.
Good job, Jack.
Moving on, 249.
Probably got moved to the asset side because it's, yeah.
Oh, I got you.
This guy.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's good. Anything on 249? No. Where are we going next?
Done.
Recreation involved? All right, well.
Fantastic, gentlemen.
So we talked about a lot of things, guys, Derek, Sean. We were able to make some corrections on the fly here. We talked about, I think, see that staff is something that's important in the future. Mechanic, potential part-time, at least initially, if not full-time. You guys do a tremendous job of keeping the CERP updated. We see pretty steady stream of equipment moving in there. Is there anything that we're missing that we haven't talked about in the nearly 2 hours that we did over this project?
No, I think the city has been very responsive to the needs of DPW and equipment improvement wise. You know, we've got a ton on our plate, and it's a good problem to have. With Sean's help, we're going to get it all done.
Perfect. Thank you, Sean. Thank you both for.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Total confidence in his face.
You guys know.
Inspiring.
You know how DPW is viewed in our community, the work that you guys do. And again, we need to be supportive of that, and we want to be supportive of that. So we appreciate that.
And Mark's been a wonderful addition to the city, I will say too. We're lucky to have him. So.
All right, 40 minutes over your allotted time.
Just a couple more things.
You cannot. All right, well, we are going to have to take about a 3-minute break because ever since I sneezed, my nose won't stop running. And then we will finish the last 2. So if you need to get up. All right, are we ready to come back together here? We will be starting on 224. We have our director with us as soon as we're here. Ready to go? All right, Teresa.
So obviously this is the arena. The biggest thing to note will be the transfer in for the demo. As I just found out, it was noted last night that this number is more than likely to go up. The bid went out as of yesterday, but we did meet with engineers last week, and we think it's going to be significantly higher than this.
Significantly higher than the demo?
Yes,
How much is significant?
probably $100,000 more.
So do we want to make that adjustment now, or do we want to wait?
Bids come back on May 31st, so we'll know then. The scrap could make it go down a little bit, but I still think probably closer to $400,000.
So
Budget amendment, or do we take care of that?
But it might be, I would
Right.
maybe wait.
I would just
Probably
say
budget
budget.
amendment
I
to
mean,
the specific amount.
Right.
Now, this demo does include the restoration of the back of the building and those other things that are necessary.
Right, so right now, the way that it's written is it's itemized, Jed, so there are certain parts that we can take out if we need to. Like, for instance, there's a masonry wall that would run on that east side. That could be something we would take out, but it's complete restoration of concrete, any concrete that's there, everything else, and then seat would be laid out.
What about the roof connection? Is there a problem?
It's also fixing the masonry issues that are on the south side, and then what they're doing is they're putting kind of like, almost like a little teepee like roof on the issue where there's that connection. They're also restoring windows, so it's all of that.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can see, and actually, I'd be happy to share with you the specs if you'd like. Like I said, it went out yesterday.
Okay.
So quick addition to that, as we get further down the process, the historical committee has asked for an opportunity to take a little tour, see if there's any like little plaques and things that we might want to add to the collection. So
Yeah.
if there'd be a way to do that as part of it, keeping it safe, obviously.
I'd be happy to do it sooner than later. Yeah,
Perfect.
so just have them call and we can schedule that. It's not a problem.
Thanks,
Yeah.
that'd be great. And they can kind of tag, we'd like to keep this if we can, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else, or are we good there?
Right on 224, 225? Good.
Okay. What's that?
The only thing is the expense for the utilities.
Yeah, the expense for the utilities, we kept those in there just not knowing how soon the connection would be off. I've been the last couple weeks.
227?
Sure.
Yep.
The last couple of weeks have been a whole lot of meetings and phone calls with DTE. The main issue being, we found out with our public works department about a year and a half ago that power for concessions and the tennis courts is coming from the arena. So
we are having to figure out, it's also a primary source, and so, we think we have a plan moving forward. Myself and Sean met with DTE representative yesterday morning, then we met with this an electrician. The tricky part is getting everything connected before the demo so that that power stays. Sean's been invaluable in helping me, and then, we've sort of been coordinating as we go. So that's what that is there.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Go to 151 here?
151.
Okay. So just to know,
151.
yes. I think everyone's aware, 2 years ago, Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, it was last year, the first year we changed the budget was changed for us, where we no longer come out of the general fund. Instead, there's a transfer into the general fund. So we no longer have a 101 account, so you'll see everything that used to be there in 614. Biggest things to note here are state grant revenue carries over. That's simply a timing issue, and we always knew that if we receive that grant, that it would probably be pushed back another year based on their timing. Right now, we're in the process of, they have all of the information that DNR does. National Park Service should approve that within the next 2 to 3 months. And then we have to get a project agreement from the DNR. So we're looking at that project starting realistically in the spring of 2020. One thing that Matt and I have been in communication about is putting out a press release and also social media to let residents know the timeline of this project. But we wanted to have this meeting first, and then we've already had some language drafted, and that will happen in the next week or two. But that's what that revenue is. The only other thing to note is just youth camp continues to be our biggest revenue earner. We anticipate that we are about a week in advance in terms of revenue than where we were last year at this point, so it continues. We'll be using University Middle School again. There's nothing else on my end to note that is drastically different. If there's any questions on one people in front of that. Jack.
Quick question, no revenue from concessions.
Actually, I just noted that with Lori. That was something that I'm sure on my end, but it will be adjusted to 750. That's the lease that we do with Green, so that will be adjusted. That was an error.
Okay, 152.
Don't think I have anything to know other than obviously the transfer in from the general fund you will see for this year and next year. Mainly that's due to capital projects, and the transfer in from the senior fund ends after this coming year. Everything else is pretty much status quo. Any questions? 153 is mainly employees. We don't have any significant changes at all, actually, in terms of staffing hours or employees.
Any questions on 153? Okay.
154, everything remains the same. Again, similar to Derek, I do the best that I can in terms of estimating equipment supplies, program supplies, but they're a little bit, the guess and what comes up. It seems, at least for me, that everything starts breaking in May and June, and that has continued to be the case this year. So that's where we're at.
We're doing the master plan again in 1920.
Right, so 155, so the reason that it's in there, and I kind of found it out late, is technically it is due to the state in January of 2021. So for recreation, you have to have it every 5 years. Our last one was submitted January of 16, but we'll have to bid it out in the spring of next year. Originally, I had it in 2021, but it would be too late if we bid it out in July or August. So we have to bid it out, which is why it's there in the budget. Most of the work will happen, Jack, really from May, June of 2020 to the end of the year, but the money needs to be there in order to be able to do that, correct? And the reason we have to do it every 5 years is to be able to apply for the state grants. The only other thing I wanted to note on 155 was because it's been it's something that I inherited was the way that the city always did ball field netting was the ball field netting went up and it came down every year. 3 years into this role, a little over 3 years in, I'm going to change that. We have had issues pretty much every year that I have been in this seat with getting the trucks. Hart is our company that puts up our trucks because the ground is so soft. This year has been awful, and so a lot of our baseball netting is not up. I completely understand residents' concerns about that, which I'm happy to talk with them about and have, but there's absolutely nothing that we can do. So instead, we've made the decision, instead of spending the money to put them up, take them out, put them up, take them out, we're going to keep them up and hope that we at least get a couple years on them. And I think cost-wise, it's a better idea, and then we don't have this issue of them not being up when we play, 5, 6, 7 weeks of baseball. So I just wanted to note that. You'll see that in 105-818.
You think it's going to have a significant decrease on how long they last?
It's hard to say. I've talked with a couple golf courses that do this and in other cities, and if they're nylon, I think we're okay. We have one that's more, has like a cotton. I think that one will, especially if there's like an ice storm or something like that, right? It's weather dependent, but I think the nylon, actually, I think we'll be okay. Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. Any other questions on 155? Moving on. 156.
The biggest thing to note is right now, which we have had in the budget at other times, and it is back in the budget for 2020, 21, not next year, but is the fixing the separation in the southeast of the community center. We'll see where we're at next year. Everything else is pretty similar in 56.
Okay.
157. Now we're getting into summer day camp. Staffing, I don't have any major changes. We've worked really hard over the last couple of years, and council's been very supportive to increase our director wages, also add in a supervisor position, and we feel that we're in a really good position right now with both of those, so not asking for any changes.
Excellent. Any other questions on 157?
I know we're in a hurry, but I had a woman today say that she had asked on a chat what the best local camps were, and she's never had to sign her kids up before, but this summer she does, and she said that overwhelmingly, as parents said, oh, I went to this camp and it was terrible, this camp, and so she came in very fearful that she would have space due, because we take a lot of kids, but it was a nice, it's always nice to hear those things.
Great. Anything else on 157? On youth camp? All right, move on.
So now we're getting into the pages will be small. It's basically all the programs. So the way that our Pillow Puller runs is we actually staff it, and all our other programs, so are run for our programs, our contractual programs on that 70-30 split, where contractor comes in, teaches the class, they invoice us, and they receive 70% and we receive 30%, which basically covers our costs. I don't know if we want to run through these quickly, Dan, if you all want to stop me, but.
Well, we know that they're the programs. If you have any questions as we're going through the program pages, just feel free to bring up Teresa. So we've got youth dance that was on 158. We've got pillow polo on 159. Nothing else. Okay. Moving into team
Girls
basketball
basketball
on 160 there. Any questions on girls basketball? It doesn't look like there's a lot of changes.
Once in a while, I don't know if I think it's boys basketball in this one, but sometimes because of when these camps run, they get a little funky, and we for the most part figured it out of the revenues and expenses, but sometimes the years are a little off because of the camps are running at the end of June or July. So we've worked really, Lori's been great, and we've worked hard to get that situated, but sometimes you'll see like a higher expense in one year, but you'll see the revenue in the next year, and that's really a timing issue.
Looks like girls volleyball is going out real well.
Yeah, we had huge, we've had good numbers, yeah.
girls volleyball. Any questions additionally on 161 or 160? All right, seeing none, we'll move into 162, which is boys basketball, which we just mentioned. And then on 163 is women's softball.
This is the only adult league that technically we're running out of the city. We offer additional adult leagues through the Detroit Social Stay and Play. A lot of cities have gone to that, which has been nice. It's something that still our residents can do. It's in our city. We run those at Lazenby, but you know, another organization handles a lot of the administrative stuff so that we won't have that with our limited staff on our end.
Okay, any questions on that? Seeing none? Tennis on 164. Should be increasing. And co-ed softball on 165, looks like
No
that
longer,
has not
yeah.
happened. Moving to 166.
This is our community center use salaries, so y'all know Connie. This is mostly her and any of other part-time people that work meetings.
167 concession stand, that's zeroed out.
Right, but because we don't have any expenses there.
Nothing on 168. Let's move to 169.
So this is primarily Dream Cruise. It is the 25th anniversary this year of Dream Cruise, which makes it the 25th year of Cruise Fest. So next year, 12 miles after, it'll be the 24th anniversary of Cruise Fest. We don't have any major changes. You'll be seeing me again in a couple weeks for merchandise before council. But primarily, this remains largely the same in terms of our costs. We try to keep it pretty lean, but also make a small profit, and also obviously the nonprofit groups that sell merchandise.
Any questions on 169? Dream Cruise. Okay. Moving to Summerfest and Winterfest, 171.
Again, relatively the same. We work really, really hard, and we have some great businesses that are really loyal to us to get sponsorship. It's sometimes like pulling teeth when we feel like we ask the same businesses, you know, for money, and then a couple months later for money again. But they've been really good to us for both these events, and or Summerfest is multiple events, and you know, our turnouts are phenomenal, and you know, they're really great community events that we try to run at very low cost to the department.
Excellent. Questions on 171? Okay.
So 172, 173, you're gonna see most of our capital. It's definitely more aggressive in the next 2 years than we have been in the past. This year, obviously, we've got the grant work carrying over, but in addition to that, this is following the capital plan. We have new play equipment at Oxford Merchants, also picnic tables with umbrellas. We're looking to do some landscaping and drainage work at Lazenby, which we think is important. It's pretty wet over there. Looking at doing some more work at Merchants, continuing to take out a lot of the trees that for the last 15, 20 years we sort of have. We've cleaned up quite a bit this past year, and I think after this year we're probably going to be pretty good there. But some of the trees, and then you can see the following year sort of what is planned. So I'm happy to answer any questions about any of these capital projects.
It's important to know, like you mentioned, this is following the plans that capital plans
Correct.
in place.
Yep.
Like you mentioned, there's been some leaner years in terms of the capital for
Yeah.
the rec department, but now we are following and catching up to some of those things that we had planned. And that Merchants fencing, is that fencing around the outside, or is that fencing for the
Softball,
the
for the fields,
fields?
yeah, so it'll be like
Right.
like softball fencing, yeah.
And when do we expect that to?
My hope is, so all the other work will be included in what will be bid out in the winter. My plan for this is to bid it out as soon as possible and award it, and hopefully like a July install.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really dependent on the fencing companies.
Okay. Any other questions on the capital on 173? Blackboard is happy with the capital?
They're very happy. Yeah, I think Bridget can attest to that as our liaison.
Good. 174, some more capital.
More
next
capital
year.
for the following year. And then equipment, which our maintenance staff is, and again, this is following the plan. And these are some things that actually had been in the plan in past years and kind of got pushed back, and that's why you see both the tractor riding mower and the zero turn in this. And the outdoor storage unit is to replace the shed that it's very difficult to even open the doors now at public. I mean, it gets frozen shut and stuff, and so that's what that is for.
Questions on 174?
And it just to know, we work with Public Works when, for instance, they have 2 zero turns, and so we'll bid all 3 out to get better cost pricing. We've already discussed that, and, you know, our departments work quite well together.
Okay, moving on.
Just the transfers on 177.
Sure. Okay. 180. 180, we'll go to the senior activities. Anything on the revenue side?
No, it remains the same. Just kind of to note, our senior trips and have really been, our senior coordinator who also runs our events, Dan McMahon, has doing an extraordinary job, and the numbers have been really good, and lunches and outings have just been kicking it. So it's something that I sort of challenged him, and he's more than risking the occasion. So we've been really happy with senior turnout for a lot of our programs.
Excellent. Any other questions on the revenue side, 180 to 181? All right, let's get into the other side of things on 182.
Really no changes. You know, Jim, who is our mechanic, Richard Rosie, does a phenomenal job of keeping our vehicles running. We have been in line to receive a new smart van for the last 2+ years, but it's all based on federal funding and timing, so we're still waiting, and Jim really keeps our vehicles going. So those costs have gone up slightly, not anything more than what's budgeted, but you know, we have to maintain the vehicles and they're being used, so daily.
Okay. Anything else on the 182? Okay. All right, moving into 184, the senior newsletter.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we can probably take that 600 off, because we're doing that all in-house, so I'm not sure that, and again, that's probably my error, but we can, because we stopped sending it, I mean, we're printing, but we're doing it all. We're printing.
So there's the
Yeah,
activity, it's
I
probably
apologize.
closer to
Yeah.
2017, 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
185. See our costs for our drivers, again, this is all our smart vehicle maintenance, fuel, drivers.
And questions on 185 to 186? Okay, seeing none. That's all you got. Quite a lot. So thank you, Teresa, one for enough slot that you had today following DPW.
Yeah, that would change.
But it is important to note, and we touched on it a couple times, you know, the rec department hasn't had a ton of capital in the past, and it seems like it's a little heavy on capital this year, but that's because this was part of the plan all along, planning for these projects, doing what needed to be done to prepare for those projects, and now we're able to execute those and they fit into the plan. Aside from the big capital this year, what else? Perfect world, would you like in the department? It's on your wish list. Realistic or not?
I think we're good.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, dry hair. Short of that. Yeah, well, we're working on that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the added green space, there's a sadness for us that have been around and experienced. I mean, and I went to the arena when I was a kid and all that said, but looking at it as an added green space is actually really exciting. So we've got some ideas, we've got some plans. We'll see how much we can do right off the bat. But that added green space, I think, and sort of turning around and looking at it as positive is something we're really excited about.
Aside from the physical building of the community center, but in terms of staff and equipment, I feel like we're in a pretty good.
Yeah, and particularly getting this equipment, you know, for our maintenance staff is huge and really goes a long way with that. The rest of staff, I always ask them, you know, what do you want? What do you know, we're pretty simple folks. They're wonderful and they don't really, they don't ask for, you know, they're wonderful. I love them. So, you know, I can't say, you know, that's a good thing. So I think we're good. I mean, this capital is exciting and we're really excited to see these changes happen.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Any other questions for our director? All right.
Thanks,
Cool.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dismissed.
Make a cookie. Or two.
And now we will move on to, on with what, 11 mile here? 203.
Yeah.
Mark, you want this?
Yeah, that's, we talked a little bit about it yesterday. You have 2 payments left on your 11-mile debt, and they're pretty close to one another. And there is some money in reserves still, which will be used up. So we'll levy, I can't remember, it's 0.4 something this year coming up. Maybe a little lower than that next year, so. And that will wipe out your, other than food drain debt, which is part of your water sewer fund. But as far as other debt, this is it.
This is something that we have left on the books.
Yeah.
Next year, it'll come off the books. Any questions on 11 mile debt?
Not so much a question on the 11-mile debt, but what might come next, right? So as we think about the impact to our residents and ratepayers and things like that, certainly we're not looking to do anything more than we need to, but at every opportunity when something drops, it's always harder to get it to go back up. Because if we were to make a proposal that says, well, you know, if we stay at about the same tax rate, here's what we could do with this next tranche of funding, so to speak. Is that something from a strategic perspective that we can have a conversation about to kind of, you know, continue with a new program that would pick up where this one left off? Or have we had that discussion already and the best intent is to let this drop off and the rates come down, then knowing later on if it's time to raise something, we have to talk about increases rather than stay the same?
Where we have a conversation on that, because I think the school district does this master billing is something, so they close to something coming off. They are really good about saying, you know, we're asking for this, and to the taxpayer, it makes no difference, or it's even, they can pitch it as being a slight decrease.
Yeah.
But it allows them access to funds that they may not have had otherwise.
Right.
This being a good example of that 0.46 mils, that's very specific to one thing. The taxpayer doesn't necessarily know it, but potential for asking for maybe 0.4, half a mil or something like that,
Yeah.
it does change the conversation.
Outside of this bond.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's something that we'll have to certainly discuss and have a plan for.
Yeah, I would like us to be
Because we
intentional.
have, we have seen it a couple times, as I mentioned with the district, they have things coming off. We need to be, there's a fine line. And we know we asked the residents, a number of questions last November. We got some positive, some not as positive, and I think we have to be very mindful of where that is sometimes, looking at the future and seeing tax rates or potentially things falling off gives people the impetus to vote for other options, and I think having a longer term plan, I don't like necessarily just saying, well, it's there now, so we're just gonna keep it if we don't have necessarily a plan of how it needs to work in the
Hence
future.
my
I think that's
question
what
framing
it
around
needs
a strategic perspective.
to- I think it needs to come up in our works, our study
That's
sessions
right.
for the year. Definitely. Anything else on that side?
As opposed to the other side.
Oh, my God.
We're getting late, it's day 2. All right, that concludes our items for today. Again, I want to thank all of the directors for their part in getting this done. We've heard that this is, a few months process to get these numbers. Budget, as I mentioned, is simply a list of priorities for the residents and how we use the residents, the taxpayers' dollars to be as efficient as possible, but to also make sure that the residents have the services that they need. The services want what makes Berkley unique. We went through all those things, especially as you talked about the library and parks and DPW and some of the departments that we're a little more familiar with, but also we talked about some of the departments where we need to expand, like innovation, and making some decisions on how we can increase our capability and our efficiencies for our residents. Aside from thanking the directors, again, I want to reiterate Lori and Sue and Mark, certainly the work that you guys do, a lot of the heavy lifting and preparing all of this, and we see that, we see your hard work coming through with our awards and the CAFR and the tremendous job that you do. Mark, it's good to get your feet wet here, and it was, again, we're looking for stability, and hopefully we're going to be able to talk to you the next few years, not have to make Lori pitch in and have to run through things. That's good, and I also want to thank my colleagues up here. This, reading through this beforehand and even going through it, it is a lot of time that I know that you give freely as well to making sure that we are doing the best job that we can for the residents. This is, we started out yesterday, this is the most important thing we do, handling, making sure that we have a sound budget. We see through our audits on an annual basis where we are and how we're doing, and we want to continue to keep our strong bond rating and making sure that we have the ability to do things that are important to the residents. This is not frivolous spending. I know it seemed like, oh yeah, let's increase this line item a couple thousand. That doesn't just happen if we don't have, one, very healthy fund balance, and two, the ability to continue to invest in the city. And that wasn't always the case. You look back at some budgets years and years ago, we had to cut out most of the capital. We kicked a lot of that down the road because we would have leaf pickup, we would have had to lose a lot of services, the library would have closed, Parks and Rec would have had to lose even more services. So we made those decisions were made by prior councils and prior administrations to put us in the position where we are today, where we're able to continue to invest in our city, continue moving forward and continue progressing to be the city that I think our residents are proud of and that we also are proud of. Any other closing comments? Ooh, I said 8:45. Wow, minute over. Any other comments from council on the process? Okay. With that, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn our budget work session. Before I do that, there's a softball game tomorrow. What time is it? We're still on? What time are we at? Yep, 6:30. Just get there early and warm up. We need to be there.
Who's playing?
Well, let's see. I got 1, I got 2, I got 3. Okay. Public safety. It's
gonna be tough.
Public safety, Parks and Rec, DPW. We will have some folks there. It's a great time every year. And not only that, but all the rest of the Berkley Days festivities that are kicking off Thursday, the Taste of Berkley, Friday, and Thursday actually the carnival opens. Friday, we have our shot at redemption on the horseshoe pit from the drumming that we took last year. And I know the other Berkley Days events come up this weekend, so I anticipate seeing all of you quite frequently.
Well, the way the weather
Few
holds
days.
up.
Yeah.
You know, I actually texted Denise Rainer today, and I said, it looks great, and she said, well, you just jinxed it, but. So I apologize, Denise, but it does look, it looks like good weather for Berkley Days. All right, with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned by Councilmember Stedman with support from Councilmember Dean. Ms. Boucher, would you please, you know what, we don't have to call the roll. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries, we are adjourned.
That's right.
You're in the book.
Good job.